Okay.
Okay. Roll 'em, baby.
So, we're talking about perspective, aren't we?
Ah, yes. You started to explain something, and actually, unfortunately, I kind of interrupted you. But I really would like you to carry on and explain what you meant that I interrupted. Sorry.
About walking.
About walking, yes.
About walking. Perspective and about walking. Well, we're not really taught how to walk, are we? It's something we learn by watching. And I've rarely heard in my life anyone talk about walking. I mean, apart from in a kung fu lesson, in kung fu, walking's not really been discussed in my life, you know. Oh, you know, you need to improve the way you walk. So as far as perspective is concerned, walking, people walk a certain way, and you know, you might get into your 30s or 40s and have back trouble or knee trouble, and you'll go to the doctor and they'll give you some pills or some therapy in some way, this, that and the other. But do they tell you that you're walking wrong? I mean, can people perceive that they're actually walking wrong? And when I say wrong, I mean in a way that is unhealthy. You know, I mean, especially women in high heels, you know, things like that. I mean, it's not a healthy thing to do, is it?
No, I can't do it.
When you look at it from a Taoist perspective, it's almost ridiculous to put heels on and then walk around all day, you know. It's like asking for trouble. So, keeping one's knees bent, not locking them, you know, not clunking them down as you walk, you think of an elbow and going like that 100,000 times a day or whatever, you know, however many steps you take, and then go, oh, I've got an elbow ache when you're 25. It's not really a wonder, is it?
No.
So, you see what I mean? It's the common sense, and the truth of the matter is, a lot of people don't walk properly. So it's no wonder that by the time they get to 30 odd, 40 years, that their knees hurt and their back hurts, and you know, they've got problems. But even then, you go to a physiotherapist or a doctor or wherever you go to get to cure this problem. You know, it's ridiculous. I suppose, the Taoist way in general is preventative medicine. Our doctors cure problems that we have. The Chinese don't bother curing it because they learn how to walk properly in the first place. So by walking properly, the problem doesn't arise. Preventative medicine, much more powerful than curing medicine, you see? And that's what I'm saying. Perspective is the absolute be-all and everything of a conscious mind, of an aware being. We speak of a conscious mind as in the only real conscious mind on this planet is the human mind. You know, animals are not really conscious. I mean, we know they're conscious, but they're not self-aware, really, are they? I mean, I couldn't tell you because I've never been a dog. So I can't tell you how a dog perceives the world or anything like that because I'm not one, I'm a human being. And going back to the information, you know, you can learn information about what's right and what's wrong about the world, as in politics or as in banking systems or business or anything like that. But people don't know how to walk. And I really do mean that. They don't know how to walk. There'll be so many people that will argue with me. Oh, well, of course I can walk. And yeah, but I'm looking at a little bit further than that. I'm talking about walking properly. Now, to walk properly, one would have a spring and they would use their arms as a momentum to help them walk. Yeah? But it's, you know, if you was walking up the street like that, people would be like, oh look at him, who's he think he, you know?
Cocky. They'd say you were cocky.
Cocky. And we used to have it in our estate. It was a kind of a known thing that you'd walk about, and then when you got to certain estates, you would put on a bit of a walk, a bit of a strut, you know, and bounce around. And it would almost be ridiculous. However, as I've grown older, I've realised that by keeping your knees bent, not straightening them, if you can help it, you would never straighten your knees, never. But you'll see people standing there with dead straight knees. That's not going to do you any good over the years. So perspective is all about perspective. It's not just, you know, what is hearsay or what I feel is perspective or what you feel is perspective. The correct perspective would be to stay healthy, wouldn't it?
Right, yeah.
Okay. People won't see that. People don't see it. So that's just something really simple. So you take things on a worldwide basis, you know, the world these days, people are expected to know what's going on everywhere. If you don't know what's going on in every single bloody nook and cranny, that, oh, he's a divvy, or you don't know what he's talking about. You can't know. Perspective is everything, is my point.
Well, we've got to try and understand everything.
No, we've got to try and understand perspective. Yeah? And that's where, like I said, with Taoism is roped in with all the other religions. And it's not a religion. It's a set of facts and common sense. You know? That's what's important. And that's my message to the world. And that's the difference between something like that Bruce Lee. That's why Bruce Lee made quantum leaps, because he studied perspective first.
So how do we get to understand
Perspective. Well, the simple way is truth, common sense, right? You speak to Christians, a lot of Christians, and they will say the absolute and only truth is the Bible. And you can look at the Bible and you can say, you know, you take a certain thing, Jonah and the whale, for example. And you can talk about the story of Jonah and the whale, where Jonah jumps into the sea, leaves the boat, jumps off the boat into the sea, and then the whale comes and swallows him. And he's in the whale for 3 days, and Jonah is wandering around in this whale for 3 days, and then he finds material to make a fire, lights a fire, and the whale, after 3 days, goes towards the beach and sneezes, or whatever it is, I don't know if it's a sneeze, but spits Jonah out onto dry land. Jonah then goes onto dry land and goes to live in the east of the city, right? Well, take that in literal terms, and it gets a bit ridiculous, isn't it?
just a bit?
It gets a bit ridiculous. But I've talked to Bible bashers and they say, well, you know, you can't understand God's mind. God wrote the Bible. It's God's written word, and it's absolute truth. And then you adjust your perspective on that. Now, that's what the Bible is to me. I'm not saying it is and this. It is to me. It is a hijacking of your perspective. Right? If you look at the ship that Jonah was on, God told him to leave the ship. What is the ship?
Pass.
Well, the ship is like business, like the world that we live in. It's revolving around business. You know, you have to be involved with exchanging of money and this, that, and the other. The sea is quite, this is quite well discussed, and the sea is humanity, the sprawling masses. So Jonah is told by God to abandon money, business, and money and business is meism, isn't it? It's like, oh, me, I've got to get, whatever your excuses are. I've got children, I've got family, I've got this, I've got a mortgage to pay. Well, that's all true, but take it back to its fundamentals. You need as much money as possible, and once you've got enough money, you realise you've never got enough money.
Yeah.
You might have enough money for today, but you don't know what's going to be happening in a week or two's time, month, year. So in that perspective, you can't really have enough money unless you've got a ridiculous abundance of money, So Jonah gets advised by God. I'm only saying this as just look at it a different way, just adjust your perspective. Jonah gets advised by God to leave enterprise, business, enterprise. That's what the good ship, the Starship Enterprise is. It's enterprise, it's business, the Starship business. And funny enough, Captain Kirk in Scottish,
It's a church.
is church, means church. So Captain Church of the good ship business enterprise, you know what I mean? Anyway, going back to Jonah. So God says, no, leave the ship, go back into the sprawling masses, I will protect you. Sends the whale to protect him. See? Jonah is in the whale, he's not drowning in the sea. No money, no future, no, the confusion of the masses in the sea. And God sends the whale to protect him. He's in the whale 3 days. Funny enough, that's how long it took Buddha to reach enlightenment. 3 days. That's how long it took Jesus. 3 days before he ascended, shot to heaven. Is this whole 3 days again. So Jonah is in the whale, and then he finds the material to light a fire. Where he got the lighter from, I don't know, or the matches. But he lit the fire, or perhaps he used, It's ridiculous when you take it literally. But when you take it as a metaphor, it makes much more sense.
Yeah, because even as a kid, I'd think, you couldn't set light inside a wet whale.
No, it's ridiculous. What is a fire? Light. Enlightenment. Light. So, the whale spits Jonah out after 3 days. Probably he's meditating for them 3 days in the whale. He gets spit onto dry land, and then he goes to live in the east of the city. Well, the city is the brain, and the east is the right hemisphere of the brain. We're all taught left-hand side brain thought, yeah? Buddhism teaches right to balance the whole brain, yeah? You know, that's just a little word on perspective. You know, from the Taoist point of view, truth and common sense, that's what you base yourself on. Now, if you want to find the true perspective, your true perspective, you will find that it's not your true perspective, it's the true perspective. Do you understand?
Say that again, please.
If you find the true perspective, you will find that it's not your true perspective, it is the true perspective.
Wow.
Now, the only way I can suggest, and that I've ever seen, and it, so you might say, well, who are you? Are you enlightened? Well, I have reached a level of enlightenment, absolutely. I've tried hard enough, I've been doing it for long enough, so I can't say I'm fully enlightened, or the Buddha, or King Monkey, or whatever it is, but I can say I've reached a level of enlightenment, yes. And how have I done that? By sticking with truth and common sense, the two pillars. That's what it is. It's difficult to say this is the truth in this is the truth in that, this is the truth in the other. It's easy to say it if you know it, but it's not so easy for someone else to believe it. And I wouldn't ask anyone to believe anything, because the word belief itself is the quashing of knowledge. Belief, well, good, you got a belief, so what? Well,
Contains the word lie too.
Yeah, so belief to one person is total bollocks to another person. So it's not necessarily true. The truth is the truth to everybody. The truth to just you, and it's not someone else's truth, isn't the truth, is it? It's only your truth.
Yeah.
And it can't be true then if it's only your truth, can it? It then is a belief, which is bollocks. So all this information that there is, that your David Icke and people like him are giving, I'm not going to go through names, I'm just going to use, your obvious names. David Icke is giving a huge amount of information. I mean, it's massive information, Hats off to David Icke, because to keep that in his brain is just, that's a feat of it's a feat on its own, To make sense of David Icke, you have to understand basically what I'm talking about. That, what he has found a perspective that is basically the truth. I'm not saying he's enlightened or he knows everything. But there's a common, you can follow someone like him and you can go, well, he's been doing this a long time, and he tackles a huge amount of detail in so many different directions, and most of it adds up at the end of the day. I'm not saying all of it adds up, and that'd be, I haven't studied David Icke to that depth that I could say everything he says is true. But he has found a perspective, a perspective that is universal, a universal perspective, and that to me is what Taoism is. Don't like isms because it sounds like another religion,
Ask a question.
Yeah.
It might be a naive question. What do you suggest that we do? You're giving information. What do you suggest that I do with that information?
practice it. Truth and common sense have to be practiced. And you can go to pretty basic things like a table, wood, you know, you can keep the things around you. And that's why I say Kung Fu is such a fantastic way, because you can see it in motion, right? You can see what you're doing in motion. A Kung Fu punch will be in a dead straight line most of the time. You know, there are other punches, but the real basic level is a punch that's dead straight. Fastest way to get from one point to another is a dead straight line, isn't it?
Yeah.
Is it, or is that just my perspective on it? No, you know, most
That's
people.
my experience, definitely.
And it is most people's. They will say, well, yeah, I think that's pretty. We can sort of nail that down as the truth.
Unless the straight line was over a mountain, you could go round. Is that me being pedantic?
Yeah, it might be. But we're talking, yeah. I mean,
I know we're talking in, what's the word, metaphors.
over a mountain, yeah, if we're going to be like that, over a mountain ain't a straight line, is it? So,
True.
you know, that way might be just the same as, might be just as fast as that way.
Okay.
The true straight line is through the mountain, isn't it?
I'm trying to ask from, I mean, I've heard you speak before, so I understand a lot of this already. I'm being, whatever the
Devil's
word is.
advocate or whatever.
Yeah, something like that.
Yeah, no, that's what I'd like it to be, because, you know, this stuff, although
Yeah.
it's incredibly simple,
Yeah.
seems complicated, because
Yeah.
the way we are taught, the way our world is you don't necessarily have to go to a straight line to get somewhere. You know, so much of the world has changed with the advent of computers, isn't it? And computers have become our way of thinking more, because they're not reality. They've created their own reality. You know, you can take a computer with a screen and you can look at it and you can virtually say there's an entire universe in that computer, isn't there?
Yeah.
A whole universe. So that's what your brain is, a whole universe. But from me to you isn't. It's a very small part of the universe. So from me to you, a dead straight line is the quickest way for me to get to you, isn't it?
Yeah.
And that's what I'm saying. If you take that concept and keep applying it, keep studying it, like I said yesterday, a cup of coffee. It's a cup of coffee. If you're going to argue it's a mug with some milk, water, yeah, don't waste my time. I can't be arsed. It's a cup of fucking coffee, right? See what I mean?
Yeah.
That's how you can get to the truth in anything. In absolutely anything. And that's my message to the world. There's, you know, you can go on Facebook, can't you, and you can say something, and you know it's true because you've seen it with your own eyes, but you'll get people argue. Oh, ain't the truth, this, that and the other. Yeah, but this, that and the other. No, I've seen it with my own eyes. Oh, yeah, but you say that, and you know what people are like.
Yeah. We should have organised this better. We're on 25 minutes now.
Alright.
I'm quite happy to do some more.
No, that's good. I think we've hit the
But that
point.
actually, because you actually said something about that's my message or something you just said.
I think we've got to explain in, you know, what I'm talking about perspective. Like I said, I don't want to give information. There's a million people doing that. You can do it
You could
yourself.
talk from now till Sunday.
Yeah. And that's not what this is about. This is about it's almost like an introduction to a kung fu lesson is what I'm really saying, you know, and the point of a kung fu lesson. So yeah, I'm happy to stop that.
Cool.